It was just bad programming on the North Koreans' part. But the sad part is no systems should have been infected because it was only effective against unpatched or older systems that should have never been in place.
What do you worry about when you hear, when you know, as this evolves, and it seems like it's becoming, really compressed to the point that, look, I've covered Russia America summits for 2 decades, and cyber concerns overtook nuclear concerns. I mean, it was a much bigger agenda because, nuclear concerns are real, but are they an imminent threat? I mean, the thought is no. But cyber threats are an ongoing imminent threat.
Yes, and again, we're far more vulnerable because of our attack surface. With nuclear threats, we had mutually assured destruction. With cyber, now we'll be we'll have way more damage than the adversaries will ever have.
And why is that? Just because we have more things online? Most of our industry is online and modernized.
Yes, industry, banking, everything. I mean, just everything is getting to be online, and we just have just far more to hit.
What is your nightmare scenario?
Well, obviously, the power going down for 3 months, that would be my biggest, or longer, just the chaos and anarchy that would happen from that. And again,
I would say that's a good Tom Clancy chapter, but not very realistic. But now, after the pipeline was hijacked on the eastern seaboard of the United States, it's a very real possibility. And suddenly, it dawns on all of us that this is not some kind of abstract exercise that they play with in FBI headquarters or the NSA or the Pentagon. This is real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, with the pipeline, luckily there were workarounds to get the fuel. You can use trucking, you can use all that kind of stuff. But if your generation capacity is blown up, you can't go to Generators R Us and just order one and get it within a week. It takes it takes a year or so to bring those things online. And if you have a whole bunch of them go down, it could hurt.
During the summit in Switzerland, in Geneva, President Biden gave President Putin a list of sensitive no-go areas for hacking, even though the Kremlin denied that they do hacking. But I think there's 18 of them. Or do you think that Putin found that amusing, or what was the mention by Biden of imagine if your oil pipelines went down, which seemed to be a pretty muscular threat to me? Do you think that is enough to dissuade the Kremlin in the future?
Personally, I think maybe it may give some pause because generally the United States doesn't advertise what it can do. From what I've seen, is we kind of hold back the really good stuff and for the time and place to use it, so to speak. I can't talk about things obviously that I may have come across within the intelligence community in that regards, but when President Biden did say that, I did have a small smile on my face.
Is there capability to fight back, and do you need to do that in cyber warfare?
Directly, I would not know. I would hope so, but same thing. If I did, I probably wouldn't be allowed to talk about it.
All right. I'll let you dodge that one. Is it time for a sea change in how we run infrastructure, companies hold data, and how we protect ourselves? And again, it has to be more than a password.
Well, it's honestly, I think we probably need to regulate some cybersecurity into things. Actually, put some penalties in there. There are best practices that are out there. The DHS puts out great publications under what we call NIST. The CIS cyber information's. I apologize. It's been a long day for me, but there are absolute best practices out there, and I think we need to probably kind of put some regulations in there where companies could probably face some liability for just ignoring things. Again, to kind of say, hey, you run this, you have to have A, B, C, and D. Some of it is
because you're providing critical infrastructure, or you're part of that critical infrastructure puzzle in Western society that's really interesting, that you would say, government would say to them, look, if you don't safeguard that responsibility, if you're found to be negligent in not, putting up proper barriers to whoever wants to hold you ransom, you could potentially be financially responsible.
Yeah, what I mentioned with CIS, Center for Internet Security, has beautiful, like, wonderful numerated controls. Like they say, here's your top 5 controls. Have a way to put that in where, hey, you know what? If you've done due diligence, show that you've done due diligence, that you've actually put these, these top recommendations in. That would indemnify you from future liability, whether either government fines or even shareholders being able to sue you for just kind of ignoring these things. I would like to see maybe a little bit more of that, because that way you can push the boards, you can push the leadership within a lot of these companies to say, hey, you know what, we need to do this. Have it on their annual reports, their annual accounting reports, the annual reports where here's, for cyber, have something down there kind of telling shareholders, what are we doing for in terms of cybersecurity? What standards are we meeting? Is it audited? Same thing, part of the audit. Somebody can audit that. That would put some teeth into things versus this whole, hey, you should do this or else, just in case, and they'll cross their fingers.
Is that on the table with companies now?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay,
Not
should
that
be.
I know of.
I want to make your day a bit longer. You were a field agent in the FBI, so I don't get a chance to talk to field agents very often, but former field agents. But you've seen what happened in the Capitol. In the FBI, yes. There's been a lot of testimony and a lot of evidence from the FBI now saying, well, they did know about some threats online, but the criticism has been that they didn't really flag the intelligence. Some of it was raw. No phone call to law enforcement. Some of it was passed along, but probably not as a priority and not as an alarm. Knowing what you know about terrorism around the world and understanding now the threat from domestic terrorism in the US, are you disappointed with the way the FBI handled some of that information or passed some of it on?
Honestly, I know how their hands were tied based on the laws. The international terrorism laws that we have on the books are extremely strong and solid. Domestic terrorism doesn't face any of that because of a lot of the issues with First Amendment and the whatnot. And I know, like, for instance, the FBI's Agents Association has been pushing really hard in the last few years for stronger domestic terrorism laws that would allow the FBI to use a lot more of the tools in the toolbox that they have that they're able to use against international terrorism. I saw the transition of the FBI. I was pre 9/11. I was a pre 9/11 agent. I was working terrorism pre 9/11. I was, in Yemen after the USS Cole bombing and various other things, and then I was on the ground in Saudi Arabia right after 9/11, pursuing leads there. But I saw the transformation of the Bureau, how it really transformed. And I'm honestly extremely impressed on the international terrorism side, how well the Bureau has protected the United States. But there's a lot of tools that are available for the Bureau to do that on the international terrorism side. On the domestic terrorism side, not so much.
I mean, that's a big problem, right? Because you can't follow the money. You can't intercept electronic communications very well. You're limited on surveillance. There are so many restrictions unless these groups, like the 3%ers and all of them, are lumped in as illegal organizations or terrorist organizations.
Right, and it's very hard to do with a domestic one, and that's all. I think that's all up to Congress right now.
And it's been done in other countries. I mean, Canada, where I'm from, I know that they have made some of those organizations illegal now.
I believe Proud Boys are illegal there now. Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
I believe the Proud Boys are illegal now in Canada. Yes.
But not in the US.
Yeah. We have a lot of, we right now currently have a Congress that refuses to even investigate what happened, much less can you think how much legislation they passed to combat it in the current state of politics.
So when you sit around with your former colleagues, do you kind of feel this is really a ticking time bomb? I mean, if Congress won't address the threat issue, and now wants to bury some of it and say they were tourists to the Capitol, you know, some of the Republicans. We haven't faced this down. So that transition you talked about after 9/11, when the FBI went through, you know, a metamorphosis in terms of dealing with counterterrorism and threats from abroad, they need to do that with the threat from within, don't they?
Absolutely. And again, going back, knowing the tools that we have, it would probably be even very effective against domestic terrorism. There's no language barrier. There's no cultural barrier. There's nothing. You know, putting undercovers in there is going to be very easy versus, you know, putting undercovers in a suspected cell of folks from far away. It would be. I would imagine the FBI with the proper laws would be extremely effective. I mean, going back. Correct me if I'm wrong, all the successful, what we would deem international terrorist attacks within the United States that happened after 9/11 really involved either lone wolves or husband-wife team like San Bernardino, or two brothers like in Boston. Things that I can't get into pillow talk. I can't get into two brothers living together or some random guy who decides he's going to shoot up a nightclub. But everything else that involved any type of conspiracy or communication or trying to get people together, the FBI has pretty much been almost 100% at thwarting those. So I have no doubt that the FBI could do extremely well against domestic terrorism. However, the laws need to, you know, maybe be tweaked a bit to assist in that.
Ammar Barghouty, great to talk to you from the Soufan Center. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I've enjoyed it. It was my pleasure.